good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where the world you are at right now. Welcome to another episode of Storytime with Wolf. I am your host, the narrator, Wolf with Attitude. And this story continues on the series about the history of the mob in America. With careful research, we last left off on the ending chapter of how made man Tony Seturo went from climbing the ladder in Cosa Nostra in the LUCCHESE family to flipping by being an informant for federal agents, the former capo regime. So let's continue where I last left off. Next chapter, the roots. To the basic traveler, Sicily was a land that attracted tourists from all over to the island. It was considered one of the most breathtaking places on earth. It was comforting to visit by gracious people, the sunny warm weather, palm trees, beaches, with the air filling from oranges and lemon scent coming from citrus trees. But those impressions was a mirage. For more than 2,000 years, most of Sicily's population was going through oppression under foreign rulings and conquerors. From ancient times into the mid-19th century, the island was raided and invaded. Sicily's location left the island vulnerable by being located in the Mediterranean Sea between southern Italy and North Africa. That would leave the island for centuries under occupation, from the Phoenicians to the Greeks, from the Romans to the Byzantine, Arabs, French, Spaniards, Austrians and so on. Finally, under a hostile Italian army, which I will get into much later on, the Sicilians survived these occupations by developing a root in two concepts: either contempt for and suspicion of over authorities, tightening it with alliances with blood relatives, as well as fellow countrymen facing the same oppressive state from outside invaders. Analyzing the siege mentality of large numbers of Sicilians. In the early 20th century, a man named Luigi Barzini, an author of a book called The Italians, observed, Sicilians are taught since they were in the cradle, or born, knowing that it's okay to hate each other, but always side together when fighting the common enemy, by sticking up for a friend even though you may not fully get along, no matter what, and always defend his dignity at all cost, and never let even the smallest lewd remark or insult to go unavenged. They must always know how to keep secrets. Always be aware of official authorities, as well as certain laws. Over time, these historical and cultural underpinnings were in the results forming certain clans in Sicilian dialect, cosche, known as a secret, in dialect, to preserve against corrupt authority oppressors, without the security to rely on public institutions to protect themselves, their families, or their property. These clans formed mainly in the countryside of the Sicilian island. They used that to rely on vendetta, compromise, and stealth to extract private justice when they felt wrong was done to them. The secret cosche was also commonly labeled in Sicily by a name, mafia. Over hundreds of years, they evolved from guerrilla war, like disorganized bands, into a world of greedy refined gangs, whose basic principles would extend with profound influence and bring this ideology across the Atlantic Ocean into America. The mafia of the old world has now stepped foot into the new world. This clan-like mentality of the mafia has officially made its move in the United States. Like much of Sicilian mafia roots from the old world, the origin of the word still comes from ancient folklores and tales. The origin of the name itself was born in the 13th century, when Sicilians were uprising against hostile French invaders into Sicily. From Palermo, Sicily's main city, according to this tale, when a Sicilian woman died during the 13th century, when a French invading soldier tried to rape her. In revenge, the woman's fiancé slaughtered the attacker. In that tale, that episode sparked certain rebellious behavior, and it formed an acronym. In Italian, M for Morta, A Allah, F Francia, I Italia, A Anella. In English translation, Death to France is Italy's cries. The origins of the mafia was born. And there you have it. Another episode of this series closing out. What we learned in this episode? The actual birth of the mafia. From the 13th century. The origin of the name itself. And why it was formed in the first place. More to come on this series. Pretty good stuff there. This has been Storytime with Wolf. I am your host and narrator, Wolf with Attitude. And this story series has to do with the history of the mafia in America. Never rat on your friends. And always keep your mouth shut. And, as always, peace out, mofos.